Yeah, I mean, so practicing language is perfect in the campus because there's a lot of international students and everyone kind of helps each other and shares ideas. The language cafe is probably the most primary way of practicing a language here, but just things like meeting up with my classmates, we'll go in the library, do a bit of oral practice. Okay, do you want to meet here after the lecture? So it's not just a language cafe. I think you build friendships in your class, which is what I've done, and meeting up with them outside of lesson to practice. So I think, and even things like listening to Spanish on the radio in the car when you kind of, it's not restricted to the campus. My practice, it's ongoing. So I think that having people to speak to, kind of language buddies, is perfect, but also building those networks outside of the class is also, or even just kind of hopping onto BBC Mundo, having a little look at 20 Minutos, just kind of little bits, and you can practice it that way, so it's not restrictive.
I don't go to the language cafe due to my timetable right now, but I do use a Rosetta Stone, which is a program that is on Study Direct, which basically you can pick any language you want, and you have to type and say the words right to the computer, and if it's wrong, it will tell you why and what. So it's a good way to practice.
Practice, basically. Practice to somewhat makes perfect. Like makes just, yeah. I think also if you find someone that you work really well with, then that's really good because you can bounce ideas off each other and you know your own strengths and weaknesses to work with each other. One thing we're always told is to sit in front of a mirror or like a laptop camera so you can see yourself signing back. Because sometimes you're signing and you think it's absolutely perfect, but actually there's lots of little things that you could nitpick about it and change. So that's probably one of the major things.
All I would say is don't stop reading. Keep reading in your target language, and make sure that you understand what you're reading, because then from that you just remember things, and then when it comes to you thinking you want to write something, you go, oh yeah, I remember I read that, and that's how you write it. So that's definitely the best. And the other thing is, don't be shy. Keep talking. Even if you know it's not right, just go for it and then see if they understand you. If they don't, they don't, but you've tried, so.
I'd say listen to your teacher when they say that you need to do lots of outside practice. So it's about more than just doing the homework. You've got to think about the phrases that you've learned during the week when you're not in class, and think in the language as much as you can, even if it's just really basic phrases that don't mean that much yet.
I think little and often is probably what I've learned. I mean, just cracking open, looking up on the computer, BBC Mundo for a little bit, reading that random article that you think's really pointless, or why am I reading about, I don't know, President Trump and all that, like in Spanish, but it's because doing it little and often, those words, you can be walking around and I'll think, or in class I'll say a word, where have I learnt that? And then you'll think, oh my goodness, I must have read it without realising it. So for me it is little and often. When you do it little and often, it actually sinks in.
Well, for languages that are especially spoken far away from us, it's hard to have any contact on daily basis, which is quite crucial for learning a language. And I think, for example, listening to a radio in this target language is a really good chance. Even if you don't really understand, it's just about listening to the words so that it comes in your ears and you just get used to it and how it sounds, and then it automatically will help you with speaking and understanding. And yeah, so I think listening to the radio is a good chance. But also maybe reading the news or starting with the children's stories, because they usually have basic vocabulary, or cartoons. I think these are one of the kind of best choices to facilitate your learning.
I feel like just don't get too concentrated on, learning the words. And I mean, obviously do that, so learn vocab and grammar and stuff, but also try to get first-hand experience of the language, like going to, to an Arabic restaurant and, trying to speak Arabic with other people and stuff like that.
I would recommend speak as much as possible. because practicing a language is also making sure you can speak it, not just write it and read it. Like comprehension will come after. Also, reading in the language that you have, as well as watching movies or series, or maybe also cooking. If you cook, recipes are usually the same ingredients, so you can practice while doing cooking. So that's 2 activities for fun.